everyone's a little bit different. We're all a little bit different. And the reason is because mine's sort of a love story in the middle of all of this. This is my mom and dad. It's the only picture I have of them as a married couple. They grew up together in a town outside of outside of Vilnius in Lithuania, in a shtetl called Maritz. And there was a little area outside of Maritz where they put all the Jews. And they were part of that. Astonishingly enough, the best I can figure out is they were very happy. They had a good childhood, they grew up together. The Lithuanians didn't like them, and truthfully, they didn't like the Lithuanians. Jews weren't allowed to hold property, they weren't allowed to have real jobs, so they all lived in the little shtetl. My dad's family was involved in horses. Best I can figure out, he was a horse thief, but we weren't sure. My mother's family, more religious, they worked on the dock, so my grandfather was away a lot, doing whatever you do with the docks as fishermen. So they were poor people, but they were happy. They got married probably when they were 17 years old. They're both born in 1919. They got married at 17 years old, I think. There's no records of anything, by the way. This is all stories from my parents, who eventually told me what happened, because as everybody else has said here, Holocaust survivors did not like to talk about what happened. Strangely enough, my dad eventually got Alzheimer's, and that's when he started to talk, because the inhibitions left his head. So I was able to put all the pieces together. My mother told me bits and pieces, but her stories are horrific, and she didn't want to talk about it. So they got married, they had a child, my older brother. One day in 1941, the Nazis marched in, as you've heard from other people. The Lithuanians sent them off to where the Jews were. They lined them all up, and they shot pretty much everybody. If you were between the ages of, say, 17 and 30, you were put on trucks. If you were anything else, you were killed. My older brother was shot in the head by a Nazi, grabbed from my mother, and she was put onto a truck. My father was put onto another truck with the men, and that's the last they saw of them for many years. And you hear that story, you go like, what the hell happened? So they're two totally different stories. So I'll go through it. I'll start with my father. My father was healthy, as you can see here. He looks pretty healthy. Had bad eyesight, which got worse as he progressed because of what happened to him. My father was transferred for 3 different work concentration camps. As he got older and weaker, talking mid-20s of his age now, he was taken to Dachau, which several people have talked about as a death camp. My father was in the death camp after working for whatever. His health had deteriorated, he could barely walk, barely move, and basically he was on his way to the chambers. One day, they took him on a truck, and they took him away, and he thought he was going to the chambers. Mark's story, it was the American soldiers that had freed the prisoners in Dachau, and he was taken to a hospital where he recovered, and he became pretty healthy, actually, strangely enough, which is astonishing. Then his story began. So he's running in 3 concentration camps, worked for 4 years for the Germans. Now he's got to find his life and put it together. Somehow, he ended up in a displaced persons camp in Germany. He landed there for about 6 months. His health improved again. They moved him to Italy, which is, again, if you remember the war, they were on the German side. But the Americans took over the camps, and they were running the camps. My father was in 1 camp in Italy, northern Italy, for about 3 to 6 months. And again, his health improved, and they didn't want to keep him there. He had no relatives, no family, nothing, so they didn't know what the heck to do with him. And he ended up going to a town called Cremona in Italy, which is where they had a very large displaced persons camp, where lots of Jews who had no family put together. My father, being who he was, my mother disappeared 4 years ago, so he went and got married again. And he met this wonderful lady who we don't know. Her name was Rivka, that's all I know. They got married and she had a baby, was having a baby. So she was in her 8th month when the story continues. Now let's go to my mother's side. My mother was in 3 different concentration camps, but she didn't do hard labor. She really worked more helping the Germans build clothing, working in the farms, and I had asked her if she was assaulted. She didn't want to talk about it, but she was assaulted several times by the Germans. The good thing for Jews at that time, we were considered vermin. So if a German soldier touched a Jewish woman inappropriately, the German soldier was shot. So that scared the hell out of them. So they left most of the Jewish women alone. My mother did say a couple soldiers, did bad things to her. She didn't like to talk about it, but I get it. My mom went to 3 different camps where she worked. Again, she said she did not suffer, although her life wasn't hers. And war ended. One day, just everybody disappeared. My mother's sitting there, she said, in the camp, the Germans left, Americans showed up, and she said, what do you do? So she asked about my father, and they said he died, which of course is what most people thought had happened. When somebody told my mother, and it's the parts of the story, just think back, here's the 1940s, nobody knows anything, we don't have the internet, we don't have cell phones. Somehow my mother found out that my father was still alive, and he was like 1,000 miles, whatever the distance between Cremona, Italy is, and Germany is. She went there and found him. She had people, I said, how'd you do it, Mom? She says, people helped me. And they got into the camp in Cremona, and she met my father again, which was a strange reunion. My dad is now married to this woman. My mom's sitting there going, okay, I'll go find somebody else. My dad said, no, this is not what we're gonna do. And they got together again, and the rabbis who were running the camps back in those days, trying to get Jews together to have more babies for the obvious reasons, and they took Rivka away. And we believe she was sent to Israel, to one of those places there. And I wish I could know who Rivka was, and where she is, and who my half-brother is that I probably have somewhere. But I've tried genealogy and everything else, couldn't find anybody. So now they're in this displaced persons camp, and they don't know anybody. So now they're trying to figure out where to go. So my mother said she knew she had an aunt who lived in the US. If anybody here is named Levine, it's never related. So Tamara, her name was Schneider-Rovich at the time. So Tamara Schneider-Rovich, she found out about her. Somebody wrote letters to her, and they decided to sponsor my parents. So the Schneider-Rovich clan, the Levine clan, had a small business, 11 kids. Everybody had a lot of kids in those days, and they sponsored my parents to come to America. And that's what they did. So 1947, did I mention my mother had a baby? Oh, sorry. My brother was born in 1947 while they were in the camp. He's an Italian citizen, and he did get drafted by the Italian Army. That's another story. And they were brought into the US. On the ship coming over, my brother decided to get cholera or syphilis, whatever people get in those days. So everybody on the ship got off the ship, and they found people there to help them, not my family, because my brother was sick. So there were 3 of them put into isolation camps until they got better. So about a couple weeks or a month later, they were brought out, and by themselves, this gentleman who became a close friend of the family, Kalman Lapidus, and Lapidus is here, they know him. Kalman decided to help my family. He was relatives with the family up in Utica. So he picks up these 3 people, 2 adults, completely couldn't speak English, whatever it was, he spoke Yiddish. They were so happy. So Kalman took him, drove him up to Utica, and that's where my parents settled into the US. My father worked for the Levine family for several years because he did not want to have his debt unpaid. He had several $1,000s he owed him, and he worked there for 3 years before he decided to move to New York where all the real Jews were settled. So in 1950, while they were working and settling, I was born. So I decided to join the world in 1950 in Utica, New York, and I was brought up by 11 Levine kids, as my parents worked. We have pictures of them, we know who they are, and they're a wonderful family. So the next picture is, as I said, this is the better story you're gonna hear. This is a picture of my mom and dad in 1954. It's probably July 1954, because my mom is 6.5 months pregnant. And she was visiting a family member of the Levines who lived in Springfield, Massachusetts, and my mother decided to go into early labor. So my sister was born the day after that picture. So unfortunately, that's a half good story and half a bad story. My sister was born 6.5 months. She was 1.5 pounds, and she was declared dead at birth. The hospital decided that's not so good. She was still breathing, and they put her on an incubator. My sister, by the way, is now 73 years old.
Holy
she lives in West Orange. She's just fine. She did have cerebral palsy. She has terrible problems with eyesight and legs. She did survive. So here's this family. They've gone through everything, and they now have this child. So my mother spent the rest of her life taking care of my sister, and my father decided to go to work and become an American, however it was. He worked in factories in Manhattan for many years. He started to learn English and assimilate into the world. This gentleman, Kalman, who's my fake cousin, he decided to loan my father $3,000, and he went off to buy a lunch net. And he had several luncheonettes. One of them was in Sheepshead Bay,
Really?
where I met Mark Reiner, but I didn't know it at the time. So Mark was one of my father's customers in his luncheonette, and that's where I spent my time growing up as a kid. So I worked for my father. He became, a European Jewish entrepreneur. He made a life for himself. My mother did take care of my sister. She went to work a little bit. But I said, my entire family was completely wiped out. We both said here, it's different being a Holocaust survivor. I had no grandparents, I have no aunts, I have no uncles, I have no cousins, I have no relatives. There's another story of one child who did survive, and that family lives today still in Lithuania. My brother resettled in Israel, so I have a big family in Israel, and I got this wonderful family here, Roberta, here in the States. So it was different growing up as a Holocaust survivor. No one could understand my experiences. No one could understand why I didn't have a Mother's Day or Father's Day. We didn't celebrate holidays, ever. It wasn't something Holocaust survivor people did, because it was too much sadness in their life. Fortunately, my mom died when she was in her 70s. My dad, of all the things happened to him, developed Alzheimer's. He died. He was the healthiest man who ever died of Alzheimer's. I need to tell you that. No medication, no drugs, nothing. He unfortunately had a fall and passed away. So, his life was amazing. I'm here today because of him. And being a Jew is tough, and being a Holocaust survivor is tougher. So, it's something I've learned to live with and accomplish, and Roberta's deals with me and heard the story several hundred times. So now I don't have to tell it every night over dinner, Roberta. Thank you very much.